But what we're starting off with is factoring these quadratics. We have these 5 main steps for factoring quadratics or quadratic-like expressions. First thing we need to do is find the greatest common factor. And really with any factoring, greatest common factor is a great place to start. Then our second step is to write our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. After that, we're going to find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are going to be opposite. Then we're going to find the factors of the first and third term. And lastly, we're going to plug in and check. So when we look at this first problem here, b squared plus 12b plus 20. Is there a common factor between b squared, 12b, and 20? No, there's not one. And one of the kind of big giveaways is the first and third term. B squared doesn't have a number in front of it. 20 does not have a variable, so no greatest common factor. So we'll have 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now, the big reason I do this and I have this is to make sure we have enough space. That's really it. That's the only reason I do the 3 spaces in each set of parentheses, is just to make sure they're wide enough to fit everything we need to write in. Now, to find the sign, if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the third term is positive, so the signs are going to be the same and match the sign of the middle term. Since the third term is positive, they're both the same and they're both end up being positive. Factors of the first and third term. Now, the factors of our first term, b squared, I don't normally write it out, but our only real factors of b squared are b and b. There is really one other set of factors for b squared, and it's 1 and b squared. This does not help in factoring. It isn't going to be b and b. 1 and b squared is not a set of factors that works for this here. Now, the factors of the third term, factors of 20, are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. 3 is not a factor of 20. One of our ways to check for 3 if it's a factor is if the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, the number is also. Well, 2 plus 0 is 2. 2 is not divisible by 3, so 20 isn't. 4 is, and then 5. Questions on any of this here? Which set of factors do we want to try first?
4 and 5.
4 and 5. Now, I don't multiply the whole thing out. Some teachers, some books say that we need to multiply the whole thing out to check it to make sure we have it right. I'm not a big component of it for a few main reasons. One, b times b is b squared, yes? But where did we get those numbers from? They're the factors of b squared. So by definition, if they are the factors of b squared, they're going to multiply together to give us b squared. Not a whole lot of reason to check it. 4 times 5 is another one I'm not going to check. I'm not going to check those last ones. Because where do we get the 4 and 5 from? The factors of 20. So by definition, they're going to multiply together to give us 20. The ones that I check is our outer. I'm checking for that middle term. b times 5, positive 5, is positive 5b. 4 times b is positive 4b. And 5b plus 4b is 9b. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Now, the first thing we could do is we could switch the 4 and 5. Would that change anything? No. If we had a number besides b and b in the first terms, then it would make a difference, but here that's not going to change anything. So what would we try instead of 4 and 5? 2 and 10. And we can check it again. b times 10 is going to be positive 10b. 2 times b is positive 2b. And 10b plus 2b, 10 plus 2 is 12b. Is that the middle term we wanted? So b plus 2 times b plus 10 are the correct factors. Now you don't have to write this, but b plus 10 times b plus 2, those are also the correct factors. It's just that they are flipped. They're rotated. Because the order in which we write them does not matter. b plus 2 times b plus 10 is the correct answer. b plus 10 times b plus 2 is the correct answer. You don't have to have both. You just need one of them. Are you ready for the next one? A squared plus 4a minus 32 is their greatest common factor. No. So we'll have two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now we need to find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the sign of the third term is negative, so the signs are going to be opposite. One is positive and one of them is going to be negative. Now, it really doesn't matter which one we put as positive, which one we put as negative. We just got to make sure that they are opposite. Factors of the first and third terms. What are our factors of a squared? A and a, yes? Are there any others? 1 and a squared, but that doesn't help, unfortunately. And part of the reason that doesn't help, I'll show you on the last one, because if we used 1 and b squared, I'm going to replace. Our second set of parentheses is 1 plus 10, yes? What is 1 plus 10? So it's telling us that we have 11 times b squared plus 2. Well, that's not going to get us back. Really, it's saying that it factored from 11b squared plus 22. Doesn't work. Yep. No other factors for a squared. 32 has more than 1, yes? Yeah. Because we do have 1 times 32. Is 2 a factor of 32? 2 and 16. Is 3 a factor? How about 4? 4 and 8. Is 5 a factor? No, because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. Is 6 a factor of 32? No. Do you know the rule for 6? If both 2 and 3 are factors, 6 is also. Since 3 is not a factor, 6 can't be a factor. And really, that's it. What do we want to try first? 4 and 8. And again, the main thing we want to check for is that middle term. A times negative 8 is negative 8a. Positive 4 times positive a is positive 4a. And negative 8a plus 4a, negative 8 plus 4 is 4a. Negative 4a. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Yes and no. No, in that we want it to be positive, not negative. But yes, it is 4. And normally when I get the correct number but wrong sign, I flip the signs. The other option is that we switch everything else. We switch the a and a, which in this case won't make a difference. But then we also have to switch the 4 and 8. So we have to switch all sets of numbers. And if we check it one more time, a times positive 8 is positive 8a. Negative 4 times a is negative 4a. 8a minus 4a is positive 4a like we wanted, telling us that the factors are a minus 4 and a plus 8, giving us a minus 4 times a plus 8. Questions on this here? X squared minus 17x plus 72. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? There's no greatest common factor. We'll move on to our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. And after that, we're going to find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here our third term sign is positive. So it's telling me the signs are the same, and they're both going to be negative. So we'll have negative and negative. Factors of x squared are, well, x and x are the only factors of x squared, and since the number in front of it's 1, it's just telling us it's x and x. Factors of 72. Well, the nice one's 1 and 72, yes? 2 and 36. Is 3 a factor? Yes, 3 and 24. 4, 18. 5. No, 5 is not a factor. 6, 12. 7, is it a factor? No. We can actually see that for the most part. 8 and 9. Because what's 7 times 10? 72 is a little too close to 70 for it to be a factor. 70 and then 77 would be the next factor of 7. Common factor. Which set of factors of 72 do we want to try first? 8 and 9? You don't want to try 1 and 72? No. X times negative 9 is negative 9x. Negative 8 times x is going to be negative 8x. Negative 9x minus 8x, negative 9 minus 8 is negative 17. Is that the middle term we wanted? Yeah. It is indeed. So x minus 9 times x minus 8 are the correct factors. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far?
So if the minus is in the front at the beginning, you turn both of them into minuses?
Not so much. We look at the third term for the sign. We look there first. Because if the third term is positive, the signs are going to have to be the same, either both negative or both positive. And the middle term tells me that. Because if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Because the only way I can multiply two numbers together and get a negative is if one is positive and the other is negative. The only way we can multiply two numbers together and get a positive is if they're both negative or both positive. In our middle term, we're combining them. We combine the terms together to get it. So if they're both negative, a negative and a negative still give me a negative when combining. When multiplying, they turn into a positive. Now, if both of the middle terms were positive, it stays positive. So that's positive. And then when I multiply a positive and a positive together, it's still. So that's kind of how we can tell. X squared minus 7x minus 30. Kind of already told you, but is there a greatest common factor? No. So we go straight to two sets of parentheses with three spaces. The third term is sign negative. Since the third term sign is negative, that means our signs are opposite. We don't even have to look at the middle term. If that third term is negative, the signs have to be opposite. Factors of x squared. X and x. That's the only factors of x squared. Factors of 30. Well, 1 and 30. 2 and 15. 3 and 10. Is 4 a factor? No. 5 and 6. And that's the last one. Well, the next factor after 5 would be 6. It's already listed. No more factors. Which ones do we want to try first? 3 and 10. Which one do we want with the plus? Okay. 10 with the negative. X times negative 10 be negative 10x. 3 times positive x, positive 3 times x, positive 3x. So we have negative 10x plus 3x. Negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7x. Is that the middle term we wanted? Yes. So really, the checking the middle term is just to make sure we have the correct factors. The answer itself is x plus 3 times x minus 10. Questions on this so far? Are you ready for the next one? P squared plus 15p plus 50. Is there a greatest common factor? So if we're looking for greatest common factors, because first place I look is the first and third term. P squared doesn't have a number. 50 doesn't have a variable. Now 15p and 50 do have a greatest common factor of 5. But since the p squared doesn't have a 5, we don't have a greatest common factor. Now we're going to look at the signs. The third term in our case, its sign is positive, so the signs have to be the same, and they're going to match the sign of the middle term, which is plus. So we're going to have plus and plus. Factors of p squared are a and p. Now our factors of 50. Well, 1 and 50, 2 and 25. Is 3 a factor? No. How about 4? How about 5? 5 and 10. Is 6 a factor? No, because 2 and 3 aren't. 7's not a factor. Well, 1, I know 7 times 7 is 49. 49 is way too close to 50 for 7 to be a factor. At that point, we're done. 1 and 50, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. Where are we going first? 5 and 10? P times 10 is 10p. 5 times p is positive 5p. And 10p plus 5p is 15p. That is the correct middle term. That's what we wanted. So p plus 5 times p plus 10 are the correct factors. That's it. Questions on this here? Is there a greatest common factor? It is 2. So the first thing I would do is factor it out. When we factor it out, we're really just removing that greatest common factor from each term. We're dividing it by it and putting it out front. Now, since we are talking about factoring, that greatest common factor has to be included in your answer. Now, when we factor out the 2 from 2r squared, we're left with r squared. We divide the 2 out of 6r. 6 divided by 2 is 3. We still have the r. We still have our minus in front of the 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So really, we're just simplifying our numbers. The signs aren't changing. The only way the signs would change is if we divided a negative out. And the only reason I would want to divide a negative out, the part of our greatest common factor, is if the number in front of our variable being squared, r squared was negative. Well, Two sets of parentheses with three spaces. Our third term sign is negative, so our signs are opposite. Factors of r squared is r and r. Factors of 4 are 2 and 2 and 1 and 4. Which one do we want to try first? 1 and 4. Which one's positive, which one's negative? 4 is positive, 1's negative. And we can check this here. R times negative 1 would be negative 1r or negative r. 4 times r is going to be positive 4r. And negative r plus 4r, negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. That is the middle term we wanted because we're looking at 3r instead of r 6r, because we're looking at the 3r since we factored that greatest common factor of 2 out. But that's it. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? Let's look at one last one. 4x squared minus 20x minus 56. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? 4. Really, with greatest common factor, the greatest common factor is the biggest number that will divide into all three terms evenly. Well, the biggest number that goes into 40, 20, and 56 is 4. Because I can't divide by a number bigger than 4 with 4x squared. If we divide the 4 out of 4x squared, we're left with x squared. 20x divided by 4 is 5x. Negative 56 divided by 4, 14. Two sets of parentheses with three spaces. The sign of our third term is negative, so the signs are opposite. Factors of the first and third terms. Well, the factors of x squared are x and x. Well, the only factors of 14 are 1 and 14 or 2 and 7. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 7. Which one do we want positive, which one negative? 2 positive, 7 negative. And we can check. X times negative 7 is going to be negative 7x. 2 times x is going to be positive 2x. And negative 7x plus 2x, negative 7 plus 2 gives us negative 5x. And that's it. So those would be our factors. Questions on those here? Now, will every single quadratic factor? Not necessarily. Because there are some, we have come across them already that don't factor, yes? Now, one thing I will show you that's interesting. This here, b squared minus 4ac. This should be familiar. This is part of the quadratic formula, yes? And it helped us with solving. Now, if the number that comes out of this here is rational, is an integer, we know that that is factorable. But if we're left with a radical, we get an irrational decimal, or we get I, it'll tell us that this does not factor. And if I wanted to check this here, b, in our case, is negative 30. minus 4 times A is 5 times C is negative 135. So I can grab a calculator and say second square root, what is that, 30 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 135. And it tells me that it is rational, 60. Because if I end up with a radical, I end up with an irrational decimal, and just a big decimal, we know that it's not factorable. So here it's just telling me it is factorable. And the first thing I would do is factor out the 5. $135 divided by 5 is since the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. Only factors of r squared are r and r. Now 27 is 1 and 27, 3 and 9. R times 9 is negative 9r, plus 3r giving us negative 6r. Questions on this here? So, on the homework, there is one that is not factorable at all. There is one that just has a greatest common factor. That's all you can do. All right? I tried to fix the one that was not factorable and actually make it factorable. And what I thought I did to fix it didn't actually fix it. It is not number 9. But, so if it just has a greatest common factor, all we do is factor that out, and that's our answer. If it's not factorable at all,